America values democracy, freedom, and First Amendment rights above all else. But prejudice has found its way into our legal systems since its very creation. Over the past 100 years, America has made great headway in gaining rights for minorities and being amenable to change. But these rights did not come without a fight. Through issues such as the Holocaust, where American troops were sent over to Europe to combat anti-Semitism, the removal of racist and segregationist policies in the South in the school, the workforce, and the home, as well as recognizing sexist practices that prohibited women from owning property, filing for divorce, and pursuing a career of their choice. All of this change occurred through our legal system. So my question for today is, to what extent does our legal system affect our nation's collective memory? Well, I would like to argue that it sets the greatest precedents. Political views are all shaped by a person's memory of specific instances, events, and circumstances. Memory and understanding of these events dictate a person's ability to form an opinion about past or current events. Postdoctoral researcher Daniel Fitant expands on this idea of memory justification being the act of justifying political views by inserting specific historical events or personal examples to justify the spread of harmful rhetoric or the continual use of discrimination in your everyday life. Dr. Schachter, esteemed American psychologist, states in his research that memory can be distorted or prone to error over time. And this distortion has had an effect on our legal system for many years. Some widely known examples of the discrimination that has been allowed to occur underneath our legal system is the effects of Plessy versus Ferguson and Brown versus Board of Education. Plessy versus Ferguson's verdict of separate versus equal for different schools in America directly had a result, but was eventually overturned by Brown versus Board of Education, finding that verdict to be inherently unequal and unconstitutional. A research paper written by A.J. Angelo and Carol Marshall expanded on the idea that laws gotten rid of many years ago still have an effect on our culture today, and this can be seen through both of these cases in urban neighborhoods and school systems further in the South. Now, many theories have arisen to combat discrimination, such as critical race theory, whose origins go back as far as pre-slavery in America. Research by Gary Minda understands that racial critiques of law directly rely on American relations going back as far as our creation in the 1700s. But critical race theory has been rejected as a solution to the discrimination faced by people of color because it affects one prejudice groups disproportionately compared to other groups. Now, many argue that the legal system has to go through radical change instead to combat discrimination, instead of using a proposed bill or a proposed act. The law requires collective memory to be unbiased and completely impartial. But how can this be true when our memory of everyday events is often distorted or prone to error? Juries have been regarded as unnecessary or objectively biased because one person cannot fully get rid of their own opinion or their own memory to fully form an opinion about a certain case or about a certain verdict. Studies done by Molly Johnson, law report and attorney specialist, shows that witness-given testimony diminishes over time, meaning that the further away an individual is from an event discussed, the more likely they are to forget specific events, specific facts that could be convincing evidence in proving someone guilty or innocent. Now, the U.S. legal system currently abides under the proverb, innocent until proven guilty. But how can our trials and our legal system truly be innocent until proven guilty if every single person involved's memory has been distorted, prone to error, and found to have discrimination within themselves? And this distortion has had a lasting impact on verdicts that we currently see in America today and past verdicts that have set precedents. An individual who would understand these effects is Colin Powell. Colin Powell was a politician, and in the 1990s brought over General Mikhail Mosayev to view the memorials with him as he made his rounds, which is a ritual that he himself did after losing much of his family and friends. They stopped at the Jefferson Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial, and the Vietnam Memorial. But something that struck me in my research was when Colin Powell pointed out the inscription on the Jefferson Memorial, "I have sworn upon this altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny against the mind of man." And then he took him to the wall, where those that we have lost in the Vietnam War, their names have been inscripted on. And in that moment, General Mikhail Mosayev understood. and he felt the weight of that loss. Not only because he could empathize with Colin Powell, but because he himself had lost others. He had lost friends and colleagues and soldiers and family in the war. And even though at the time that this happened, the war had been over for 15 years, we can still see that effect then and even now in 2025. We feel these effects of these verdicts and these decisions made by our government every single day. So something must be done to combat this discrimination. But I must concede that during my research, I did not find a solution that could directly get rid of discrimination for all people. And I believe this to be because humans ourselves are prone to error. We are prone to having bias. We are prone to not having a perfect fall-through memory. Some proposals have come about, such as equal opportunity, affirmative action, and No Child Left Behind. And while these have been great instances of proposals and solutions, they did not fix the issue in its entirety, because instead they affected one prejudiced groups disproportionately to others. So I believe the only thing that we truly can do as of this moment, until we find a given solution or our legal system goes through radical change, instead we must educate our citizens more about what they themselves can do to combat discrimination and to understand the implicit bias that they hold in themselves every single day. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions for you. First question, did your research go in a different direction than you originally expected?
Yes, so when I was originally researching, I assumed that there would be one point blank solution, that this was all due to one specific instance in our government, the way that we govern ourselves and the way that represented officials use their power in the way that they choose what laws we would like to pass and what acts. So originally I assumed that I would have one straightforward solution, but upon looking towards it, the one straightforward solution that would help one prejudice group, when compared to another, it would hurt them even more. And so therein, I believe that tackling discrimination as a whole is such a large issue that there really is no one solution, and that really changed over my research time.
Okay. And the last question, second question, how did you use the conclusions or questions of others to advance your own research?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, when I first thought that I would have one straightforward solution, it was upon researching and reading, and especially ones about No Child Left Behind and how that disproportionately affected certain students and how that ended up having much more negative effect in our schools. My perception of this issue was changed very much, and so I just believe that since there is no one solution, it's just changed and really evolved over the past